Hello, and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach. All right, welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Amy Prestridge. Hi, Amy.
Hello. Hi, Amanda.
So glad you're here with me today.
I'm
Thanks for
happy to be
being
here.
on. Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
So I always like to start with a little icebreaker question, which
Oh,
is,
okay.
which is, what hobby or activity brings you the most joy and why?
That would be musical theater, either directing or performing. I've I used to be a music teacher in my former life, BC, before children, and I've just always loved it. It brings me such joy. It's difficult for me to even explain. Working behind the scenes, creating with a group of people working together, being on the stage and having that energetic interaction with the audience. It's just, there's nothing like it. So that's definitely my go-to. There are other things I enjoy in life, but that's my number one. It's my number one.
I love that. And you can see the passion that you have for it as you talk about it. It's just,
Yeah.
you radiate with that sort of that energy of like, it's so awesome.
Thank you. It's great. I highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
All right. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about coaching.
Perfect.
So tell me a little bit more maybe about how how life coaching came into your life.
Okay, well, I'm a certified traditional naturopath and stress management practitioner and energy worker. I do emotion code. I do all these kind of holistic modalities that focus on helping people in all aspects of their being, right? And I just got to the point where I just really felt led to get into coaching, especially with my emotion code clients. It seems like they pair together very nicely. So as I was going through and doing all these modalities and being a lifelong learner, I'm always kind of looking for, okay, what's next? What am I going to do next? And I was really drawn to life coaching in general. And so I started researching, and I kept coming back to the intuitive life coaching because it resonated with me. I felt like that was I guess intuitively, ironically, I felt like that was the next step for me, that was going to be the next piece of the puzzle. So that's how I ended up there.
Awesome. I love sort of all of the things that you do, all the modalities and just, as a healer. And I love how you intuitively found intuitive life coaching.
I know, right? Crazy.
It does. And I love what you mentioned about sort of like those emotion code patients, right? Because there is a lot of, things that come up when you're doing
Absolutely.
emotion code for people, and to be able to then incorporate life coaching into that practice, that just, like you mentioned, it just goes together so well. And I can see how that's going to benefit them so much in sort of overcoming all of those things that did come up and working through them all.
Yeah, I actually coached someone today, as you know, and by the end of the session, like we did some coaching and really delved, and we uncovered a childhood experience that this person had and made this connection between how they felt in that moment as a child and how it was influencing their 5 years later. And I didn't say anything at the time just because it was our first coaching session together. But as we go along, and if we, make our way back to that point, what had happened is they had trapped the emotion as a child. They weren't able to process it. They were overwhelmed in that moment. It didn't move through the body. It was trapped. And so now here we are all this time later, and they're being influenced by that in their interactions with other people. And so if we can remove that trapped emotion, then we remove that filter that they're operating through, that they're struggling with when they are in these particular situations. So, I mean, it's life-changing. It really is life-changing when you can eliminate something that's basically working as a barrier to people being their best version of themselves. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty
And
cool.
I just realized for some audience members that might not know what emotion code is, would you mind maybe explaining what
Sure.
that is a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. So emotion code is a form of energy release. It's an energetic modality. Um, and so basically I have clients, I do muscle response testing with them. And so, for example, I have them put out their arm and I slightly add pressure to it, and they should be able to hold their arm up very easily. And then I interrupt energy flow to that muscle, and I try it again, and they can't hold their arm up. And then I strengthen it again. So now I know that they've got their body will give me a yes or no. And so then we ask questions, and the body responds, and we determine what emotion might be trapped. We can determine what time period in life it was trapped at. We can determine what it was related to in generalities. And the really truly interesting thing is as we're doing this and my office, all of a sudden something will come up in their mind and they'll be like, oh, well, I don't know if this is what it's about, but this just came to me. And so I'll ask the body, is this related to what the client is thinking about right now? And I would say 95 to 99% of the time, that's exactly what it is. And because your body just pushes it up into your conscious mind. You remember everything you've seen, heard, done, interacted, everyone you've ever met. You remember everything, but you don't remember it in your conscious mind. It's in your subconscious mind because it's impossible for us, especially as we get older, to keep track of all of those details. But your body can just bring something right up at the appropriate time to kind of give you that information. It's funny because I don't need to know. They don't need to know when or why or what. They don't need to know any of the details, but people really want to know, like, well, when did I lose, when did I trap that emotion, or what was it related to? A lot of times people trap emotions, especially when they're young children and they don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with something. For example, someone might be a small child and their mom or dad had a really, really rough day and they're very distracted. And so the child wants attention, but the mom is, I'm trying to make dinner, the child feels rejected, not having an adult head on their shoulders to say, hey, mom's had a rough day. She's trying to get, dinner on the table. They just feel like, oh, what's wrong with me? I've been rejected. And if they can't process that, that can be something that they carry in life. So we determine what the trapped emotion is, and then we ask the body if we can release it. And if the body says yes, which it almost always does, then we use a magnet. I use a magnet and go over the top of the head and back down the back. And I do that. I can hear energy in my right ear. So I just kind of listen to hear how intuitively when the crackling kind of dissipates. I know that we've usually got it. So it's super fascinating, but it's
Yeah.
interesting. The body will tell me if they're not if they're not in strong enough of a state to release emotion. So if someone comes to me and they've had in a very emotional few days, I mean, I can tell when they walk in the door. I'm like, go. But thankfully, I have a lot of other things I can, do. I've got this toolbox I can pull. Okay, let's do some energy work. Let's sedate your triple warmer meridian, which is your fight or flight response. Let's calm that down. There's lots of other things that I can do. I have a PEMF mat, which is pulsed electromagnetic frequency, that I can set someone on and kind of calm their nervous system and get them to a point where, they're better able to function. So, but the body is protective. And if you are not going to be able to easily tolerate an energetic shift, then it won't let me do it.
Mm. Wow,
Yeah,
thank you so much for that explanation. It
you're
was
welcome.
great to hear all those because I've had, emotion code done,
Mhm.
and it's been a little bit different because I've done mine remotely. And so
Okay.
to hear that, the way it's done in person, that was really
Hmm.
interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure it was very
Of
educational
course.
for all of our listeners. And I love what
It
you brought. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a great modality. I've been doing it about 5 years, and it's
Yeah.
just I've seen so many amazing changes in people, and it's really
Yeah.
humbling. A lot of times the change isn't like that, not while they're with me in the session. So I'll see someone, we'll do work, and then I don't see them again for maybe 2 weeks, sometimes a month. And I had a client come in this past week, and she comes in, sits down. It's been 2 weeks since I'd seen her, and she's like, I just have to tell you, our last session was life-changing. And I'm like,
Mm.
"Ooh, tell me, like, tell me." And basically we had cleared an inherited emotion.
Mm.
So you can trap an emotion in your lifetime, or you can be inherit one from your parents, one of your parents at the time of conception. And it takes a little bit more to release it, because it's everywhere in your body when you come in, when you're first, at the time of conception, and then as the cells multiply, it that energetic imprint is in all the cells. So it takes a little bit more, but we released inherited indecision. And she
Mm.
said that day on the way home, she's like, I was so tired. I had to stop and get coffee so I could drive home. She's like, the next day I was kind of subdued. And then the following day, it's like someone flipped a switch. She's like, she had just moved into a new place. She said that suddenly she's like, I knew exactly where I wanted my furniture to go. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do there and exactly what I want. She said, I had been stewing and going back and forth for weeks. And all of a sudden I could see so clearly. And I said, I want some of that. I need that. So it's just really, it's very fulfilling when I hear
Yeah.
stories like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
It is.
That's the huge
Yeah,
impact. Yeah. And I love how you
it
mentioned
is.
that you have other modalities that you work in as you're
Mm-hmm.
uncovering these things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because that's, that having that toolbox is amazing that you
Mm-hmm.
have all these things that you can help people with as they're working
Yeah.
through these things. So I wanted to come back to what you'd mentioned about how, energetic healing and
Mm-hmm.
how impactful that is. Because I've had a coach and mentor talk about how, you can only do so much like work, with your conscious mind in how to
Mm-hmm.
improve yourself and things like that. But if you have like that sort of energetic blockage, that
Mm-hmm.
there's no other way to do that other than clear that other than energy work, right? Like
That's
you
right.
could
Mm-hmm.
have all the coaching, all the therapy, all the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but if you have some sort of energetic block,
Yes.
there is no other way to get rid of that other than energy work.
It's true. It's true. And I find that super empowering, because I do know people who have been in therapy for a really, really long time, and they've read a lot of books, and they've tried really, really hard to make these changes, and they struggle to make them stick, and it's through no fault of their own. But once you can make those energetic shifts, it's so surprising. It's funny because a lot of times when people come to me, I'm like the last stop, like, well, I've tried everything else. I might as well you try this. And I'm like, okay, great, I'll take it. And we can make some movement. And then they're like, oh, finally. And so it's great. It's becoming more and more available. I do remote work as well, with people, and in those instances, I just enter their energy field. It's remote healing. I tell people there's this really, really great book by Lynn McTaggart, and it's called The Field. And it talks about the 0 point field, and it talks about how we're all connected energetically. And it's a fascinating book because it tackles a really heady, deep topic in a very accessible way. Because Lynn McTaggart is not a scientist, she's an investigative journalist.
Oh,
So she wasn't raised up in all of, studying these things. She's just an avid learner. And so she interviews people and she learns about these concepts, and then she shares them in a way that's very, very easy for for you and I who do not have degrees in quantum physics to understand. Because at the end of the day, energy healing is quantum physics. And so when people are like, I don't know, that's pretty woo woo. I just try to, tell them it's just quantum physics. And I know it's not an easy subject, but it really is accessible if you give yourself a chance and find the right sources that can help you understand it in a manner that's more accessible to the average person.
yeah, I love that you bring that up because, when people hear energy work, they do think it's pretty woo-woo. So I loved
Mm-hmm.
how you brought in that scientific aspect and component
Absolutely.
because, right, because we are all like we're all energy. Like
Absolutely.
that's what like atoms are, right? It's like
Absolutely.
there's not really much substance to that. It really is just energetic particles moving
Right.
around, but then we feel things like tangible things, but really
Hmm.
like what is it? It's just particles moving slower, but it's all
Absolutely.
energy.
Absolutely. Matter is just something that's moving so slowly that it has physical form, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely, positively everything
yeah,
is energy. Our
yeah.
words, our thoughts. Dr. Amato did some really great experimentation with frozen water crystals,
Mm-hmm.
playing different music and saying different words, and you can go online and see these pictures, and they're absolutely beautiful. They've done experiments with rice where you would put rice and water in two separate bowls, and into one bowl you would say positive things and love, um, and you would notice that that rice stays nice and fluffy and white. And over time, as you know, you keep going, it stays white. But if you take the other bowl and you say hateful things and mean and disparaging comments, it turns black. And it's simply the frequency of the words. It's just, I find it so fascinating.
Wow.
Because
Yes, it is.
honestly, you know, if we can have that impact on rice, what impact can we have on each other, right?
Right. Oh,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Each
so
other, our
yeah.
bodies, all of the things. So yeah, that's just it is fascinating. And I've seen that study with the water crystals and
Hmm.
in the ice and the beautiful designs that the ice crystals make,
Yeah.
how beautiful they are when they receive the positive messages.
Yes.
So yeah,
Hmm.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's so cool.
I haven't thought about that in a while. So thank you for bringing that up.
It's interesting. I did an exercise with my daughter's friends one time when I was trying to kind of explain how energy works to them. And so I had one of the friends stand with her back to the rest of the girls. And I told the girls that were facing their friend that I'm gonna give hand signals. And when I do, like, I don't remember what it was, but I'll give you one hand signal. I want you to like just think how much you love this friend, how wonderful she is. She means so much to you. And when I do the other one, I want you to think, I can't stand her, things like that. And when I would muscle test the girl who had her back to the group, she would remain strong when they were giving her feelings of love, and she had no idea when they were doing either thing because she couldn't see, and they weren't saying it out loud, they were just using thought. And then she would be weak when they were thinking negative things. I mean, it's just, there's so
Wow.
many different things you can do that illustrate how amazing energy is.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Super cool.
It is. It is.
It is.
So I want to look back to sort of where we started out in the
Mhm.
conversation with the coaching. And you did
Yes.
mention a little bit about how you're going to be incorporating the coaching into your practice, like with the
Mhm.
emotion code things that come up that there could
Yes.
be coaching. I'm just, curious if there's like if you could give us a little bit more information about sort of like how that's going to incorporate, and maybe a little bit more about some of the other things that tools that you have in your toolbox, because I know you mentioned
Sure.
emotion code and coaching, but and you mentioned a couple other things that I didn't catch all the details on, but I would
Yeah.
love to know more just about sort of
Sure.
what your business is all about.
Sure. So I'm a certified traditional naturopath. And so I have a strong foundation in physical and emotional and energetic health. When people first come to me, I usually do a comprehensive wellness evaluation, and I send them a 6-page intake set of intake forms. Very different than what people are usually used to. I want to know things like what kind of foods do you eat? How often do you eat fast food? When do you eat first thing in the morning? How late do you eat? Are there any foods that you really like? Are there any foods that you really dislike? How much water do you drink? What kind of water is it? Is it bottled water? Does it come out of a tap? Is it filtered? What other things do you drink? How many caffeinated beverages do you drink? How much fast food do you eat? How many times do you go to the bathroom each day? When do you go? What does it look like? I whip out my Bristol stool chart because it tells me a lot about your health. If you're not going to the bathroom every day, that's a problem because you're not getting toxins out of your body. If you struggle with diarrhea, that tells me that you have a very acidic system. and you're probably not absorbing your vitamins and minerals like you need to because everything's moving through your body so quickly. On the other hand, if you're frequently constipated, things are moving too slowly. And so not only are they pulling out the vitamins and minerals, but the toxins that should have already been out of your body are also being reabsorbed into your system. So that's important information. Do you exercise? What do you do? Do you like it? What do you do for stress management? What kind of strong social connections do you have? Just all sorts of things when people come in the door. And then we start making changes. There are a lot of things that I call low-hanging fruit. It's things that apply to everyone. I'm actually working on creating a class that I'm going to call Better Health Basics, so that people can learn about these things. People would make better choices if they had the information. I'm an educator at heart. I was a teacher for 10 years before I had my family, and it's really, really important to me to share this information. And I was at a meeting yesterday with someone I'm working on some music with, and he's like, I'm trying to get healthy. He's like, I haven't cut out all Coke, all soda yet. He's like, but I'm doing the Coke Zero instead of the Coke. And I said, well, actually, you'd be better off doing the Coke than the Coke Zero. He's like, really? I said, yeah. Well, I said, don't get me wrong. There's a terrible amount of sugar in a Coca-Cola. So the only reason your body can actually tolerate it is because the water is carbonated. When I was young, they would take what we called syrup of ipecac, which was basically flat Coke. And if you had a stomach ache, you would take that and it would make you throw up. So Coke is not good for you. Yes, but it's better for you than something that has aspartame or Splenda, which are neurotoxins, which basically means brain poison. So, but people don't know that. The marketing tells them that diet is better than regular, and it's not. So we start with those things, and it's usually about a 90-minute session, and I just ask lots of questions, lots and lots of questions. And we talk about emotions, and we talk about areas in which they struggle, and from there, then I start getting an idea of what direction they're going in. Mm. When I first started doing learning about the integrative life coaching, I thought that they would be more separate. Like I would work with someone on all of their health things. And then once I got them to their healthy, quote unquote, state, then we would shift and go, okay, now I'm healthy. What do I do now, with my life coaching? But as I went through the program, and like we spoke about, you're in the middle of these coaching sessions, and you're talking about these childhood issues or these traumatic events from relationships or what have you. And so they're really kind of tied together. There's a lot of overlap. So the way I envision it is, I've been a consultant for a very long time. I thought I was coaching. I would have told you I was a health and wellness coach, but now that I actually know what a coach is, I was not a coach. I was a consultant, because people came to me and I gave them answers. I helped point them in the right direction to make better choices for their health. But when I'm doing the life coaching, it's really a great window, an additional window into their health and what the possible influences have been to maybe some of their health issues. For example, someone comes to me and they've got a lot of lung issues. They struggle breathing, or they have difficulty with frequent infections or things like that. Well, from an energetic standpoint, grief resides in the lungs. So you'll notice when I'm around people and they're doing this, they're sighing a lot. That's a sign of expressing grief. So, well, now I've got the health issues related to the emotional. So now let's do some digging and figure out where, through the life coaching, what do you think that might be attributed to? And can you think of a time when you felt this way, or, whatever. And then, so then we start to peel back those layers and we find out, okay, it's tied to this. Well, now emotion code, how can we remove
Mm.
that energetic blockage that came from this traumatic experience that's attached to an emotion that's residing near your lungs, that's causing physical symptoms? So it has the potential to really, like, it's to be transformational. Like, it's another means of really diving deep and getting to know my client better.
Yeah.
And because a lot of times, the majority of the time, up until I learned this modality, people would come to me and I would ask them, are there specific symptoms that you're experiencing? Insomnia, anxiety, extreme sadness, whatever. Okay, or sometimes people will come to me, I don't really know what the problem is. I just know I don't feel good. And so then I would do what I would write on their form is what comes up. And then we allow the body to prioritize. I'll say, is there a trapped emotion that I can release for Amanda today for her greatest and highest good? And then the body's like, oh yeah, start here, boom. Now that may or may not have been what someone might have started with, but that's what the body says. This is going to give us the most bang for the buck. So we kind of sometimes go in a little bit blind, but if we start, if we incorporate that life coaching where we can see what issues are creating barriers to them living the life they want to live. What do they see as an obstacle in their relationships, in their work life? I'm in my mid-50s now, and I have one child left at home. The other one is married. I've got two stepkids that are, one's engaged, one's married. So I'm in a much different place than I've been the past 20 years when I was at home homeschooling and working with my kids a lot. So now I have this passion for helping people who are in my boat. What's next? Like, our lives, we've got another half of a life to live. So, where are we going to go from here? So what's preventing me from getting to that next chapter?
Mm.
Is there something that's preventing me? What is it? Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can figure out where it came from, and if there's an issue that maybe we can resolve energetically.
Yeah. I love that sort of holistic approach. It's sort of like you cover the whole gamut, right?
Right.
From like
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely.
So,
And because things are so interrelated, they really, really
mm,
are.
mhm.
You can be physically making awesome choices in your life. You're eating really well, organic and grass-fed and drinking good water and exercising. But if you've got a lot of emotional stuff that's hanging around, you can only get so far. And the opposite is true as well. You can be working really, really, really hard on all of your emotional stuff. But if you're not making, if you've got a lot of really dangerous chemicals in your home that if you're using Febreze and you've got, Glade plugins, then you're working against yourself. So if you can kind of look at all those different areas, you can dramatically increase your chances of experiencing success.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I just love that holistic approach where you're looking at all I like the examples that you provided in your questionnaire, right? Where you're not just looking at like diet, but you're looking at exercise and you're looking
Yeah.
at sort of their environment and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
that approach is just it's so comprehensive and I really love that. Thank you for sharing it with us.
No, of course. My pleasure.
So I want to wrap this up. So I just wanted to ask you, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I would encourage people to just be open, we have this misconception and kind of Western medicine that, um, if we have an issue, a symptom, a problem, that we should just, cover it up so that we don't deal with it anymore. Because in some ways that's easier. But I tell my clients, first your body whispers and then your body screams. So it's going to gently nudge you in the direction that, hey, there's something going on. We need to address this. And if you ignore it long enough, it's going to become more persistent. So it may feel more scary, thinking, okay, we've got to get to the bottom of this. But there are so many modalities out there. Everything doesn't work for every person, but something works for everyone. And so I would just encourage you to be curious and be open. And going back to the intuition, like listening to your body, I really work with my clients on that. Your body is always talking to you. When you eat something, how does it make you feel? When you are consuming media, whether it's on television or on your iPhone, how is it making you feel? Is it making your blood pressure rise? Be aware of those things. When people talk about energy being woo-woo, I try to point out that what energy is. Everyone knows people that you encounter them, and after you walk away, you're like, oh my gosh, they just wear me out. That is an energetic experience.
Yeah.
They're either bringing your high vibration down to their low vibration, or they're leeching your high vibration off of you. So you felt it. So I would remind you that this is just the way we're made, and we can learn a lot about ourselves if we are open to working in different modalities. And I just think that intuitive life coaching has been I had no idea how much I was going to learn, and how much it was going to affect me personally as I was going through the program. And so I would just say, always be open.
Yeah, I love that message, because you're right. Like, and one of the things that you said sort of at the beginning of that piece was like not cover, like your body's gonna whisper but then scream, and you don't want to sort of cover up the symptoms. And you mentioned Western medicine. I just want to like touch on this really fast, because
Yeah.
a lot of times Western medicine really is just looking at what the symptoms are and getting rid of the symptoms, but not
Right.
really looking at the root of why the symptoms are even coming up.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about sort of some of the modalities that you use.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them may be more woo-woo, or like even Eastern medicine, right? Where
Sure.
it's more looking at sort of the root cause and addressing the
Right.
root cause, so that it just goes away completely, instead of just continuing to take,
Absolutely.
pills or whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
to keep those symptoms at bay.
Right. Which
Yeah.
may or may not cause additional symptoms,
Right.
and stress on your kidneys or your liver. And yeah, so
Yeah.
and you feel better. Like, just, get to the point where you feel better. So yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being with me today. It's
Oh,
been a
it's been my
pleasure.
pleasure. My
Oh,
pleasure.
I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.